You know what unites fan rage and ruined careers? Scandals. But not just any scandals, but those that shook the gaming industry. Not just canceled releases or offended fans, we'll talk about betrayals, theft, broken lives, and toxic power. This is not a video about Cyberpunk 2077 and its bugs. This is about scandals that made developers' hands shake and companies lose hundreds of millions of dollars. When LA Noire came out in 2011, players were delighted. Incredible facial animation, detective atmosphere, cinematic style, but behind the scenes of this success is a real nightmare. The Australian studio Team Bondi, which worked on the game, was mired in endless rework, humiliation, and a toxic culture. The project was headed by Brendan McNamara, a man with a tough, almost dictatorial management style. Former employees described the studio as a place of micromanagement, fear, and near round-the-clock work. Work weeks lasted 60-80 hours, especially as release approached. Many developers complained that they were not credited despite years of experience at the studio. The reason? McNamara would drop those he felt didn't deserve to be mentioned. The team worked 7 days a week, slept in the office, and ate instant noodles. Journalists and unions launched investigations. Hundreds of developers signed collective complaints. Rockstar, who acted as publishers, quickly distanced themselves from Team Bondi and refused to work with them in the future. After the release of LA Noire, the studio was declared bankrupt. Brendan McNamara tried to revive his career through a new project with different investors, but the industry turned its back on him. His name became a symbol of despotic management and a broken studio culture. LA Noire has gone down in history, but with a taste of pain, burnout, and betrayal. A small indie studio with a big-name digital homicide became famous for its disgusting games. A broken engine, bugs, generic assets, absurd design, all this was accompanied by aggressive marketing and high prices. But most importantly, Digital Homicide didn't just criticize players. They sued them. When the famous critic Jim Sterling made a video review that trashed one of their games, the studio's founders, the Romanecki brothers, launched a personal campaign of revenge. They sued him for $10 million for damage to reputation. Then there's more. They tried to sue 100 Steam users, accusing them of bullying and insulting in the comments to their games. Steam immediately removed all of Digital Homicide's projects from the platform. The brothers claimed to be victims of a toxic community. But it turned out that they were adding fuel to the fire. They responded to criticism with aggression, behaved defiantly, and continued to release low-quality games under different names. Lawsuits rained down one after another, but none of them were won. Digital Homicide disappeared from the radar. The brothers ceased active work. The site was deleted. The games were no longer sold. This case became a textbook example of how developers cross the line between protecting their work and open hostility with the audience. Instead of listening, they started a war, and they lost it miserably. Quantic Dream is a famous studio that gave us Heavy Rain, Beyond, Two Souls, and Detroit. Become Human, games with difficult moral choices, drama, and humanity. But in 2018, a series of high-profile investigations began, which showed that the studio itself is very bad with humanity. French publications Le Monde and Mediapart published a joint investigation. A toxic culture reigned in the Quantic Dream office. Employees complained of sexism, racism, and crude jokes. Hundreds of photoshopped images created inside the studio leaked online, where employees were presented in a humiliating manner. Some images were openly homophobic and racist. Studio head David Cage and co-founder Guillaume de Fondemire denied the accusations, stating that the company had a friendly atmosphere. However, dismissals, lawsuits, and employee testimonies pointed otherwise. One of the developers filed a lawsuit for creating a hostile work environment. Trade unions got involved in the case. Cage said in court, "There is no racism in my games. How can I be racist if I worked with Ellen Page?" Which only added fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, former employees claimed that overtime was the norm, and those who complained were subjected to pressure. Although the court partially sided with Quantic Dream, the studio's reputation was seriously tarnished. Many players began to boycott Cage's projects. The studio's new project, a Star Wars game, caused a wave of negativity precisely because of the scandals of the past. Employees who left the studio continue to share stories about an atmosphere of fear and indifference. This story showed that even the most emotional and humane games can be made in conditions where there is no humanity at all. Scandals rarely happen out of nowhere. They are the result of blindness, ambition, lack of self-control, and gap between dreams and reality. In the case of Team Bondi, a harsh dictatorship destroyed the studio. Digital Homicide, a war with players turned into a public suicide. And Quantic Dream showed that even the highest ideas are worth nothing without respect for the people who implement these ideas. The gaming industry is not only engines and technologies, it is people. Their pain, their fears, their defeats. And that is why scandals in game development are not just dramas, but real tragedies from which we should all learn lessons.